We better get started. I'm Rocco Sabo from Tango. I've been with Tango for about 2 years. People call me the software training guy. Basically, my job is to meet with operations, digital transformation, IT, learning and development, training, enablement professionals, and help you be more successful training your employees and on software. So this webinar is all about if you're doing software training, what you need to know about digital adoption platforms, why you should consider a digital adoption platform for your software training initiative, and then specifically how Tango compares to other digital adoption platforms. We are going to get really specific. So we're going to break down not only four different product categories of training and enablement software tools, we're going to name names and talk about specific vendors and competitors in each space. We are, this webinar is focused on helping you be more successful with software training. And so we are going to talk about how digital adoption platforms are used in software training and how to think about them compared to some of those other tools. We are going to see a live demo of Tango at the end, and you're going to hear feedback and lessons and learnings from quite a few different people just like you throughout the webinar who I've met and had the chance to learn from, and who I've incorporated their feedback into this presentation. So let's roll. If you just joined, use the Q&A tab to communicate with me, and let's go. So before we get into why digital adoption platforms are ideal for software training, we have to talk about some truths, some strong points of view that I have and that we have at Tango about the purpose of software training. So there's all these different reasons why use cases for when we need to, train our employees and coworkers on software. Sometimes we're rolling out new software. There's a big upgrade, right? We're moving from Salesforce Classic to Salesforce Lightning. Sometimes we're going through an even bigger digital transformation effort. Sometimes it's just the process of teaching new hires how to operate within your organization and all the tools they need to use, or we're trying to reduce mistakes and get compliance through standardizing process. Whichever use case is on your mind when it comes to software training, the following truths apply. The first thing you need to know that sets this foundation for everything I'm going to talk about and informs everything else I'm going to say is the number one reason we train employees on software is to get process adoption. So a lot of training and enablement professionals I talk to, when I ask them what their goal is or what outcome they're looking for, how they're going to measure success, or how they're going to communicate their success to their boss or their stakeholders, they give me a lot of activities or anecdotes. They say things like, well, I need to finish creating this number of guides, or I have a lot of people and I need to run this number of trainings, or a lot of times they'll say things like, well, when the Slack channel dies down, then I'll know everything's fine. When I stop getting complaints, that is not how we want you to think about software training. The only thing that matters and the only way you're going to get any value from the work you did on the training and the software that you bought that you're getting people to use is by understanding what percentage of people are successfully completing all the different processes in that software. So that's the number one North Star. And Leah will actually go even further. And this is a pretty hot take and a bit contrarian, and I love it. She says, don't even train your team on software. So what does she even mean by that? She will tell you that she doesn't think it's a good use of time to ask employees to learn how to use software. So what she's actually saying is that there's all these other important things that your employees can do to add value to your organization. And yes, we all need to use software, many software programs every day on a day-to-day basis. But if we focus on having all of our employees learn how to use software and we use their mental energy on memorizing all those software processes instead of their actual job of building amazing products or making your customers happy or generating revenue, then you actually might be setting yourself up for failure and setting them up for failure. So stop training your team on software is going even further than the idea of focusing less on the training and more on the adoption. So if you're wondering, like, so what does that even mean? How do you do that? If our employees don't learn how to use the processes in the software, what do they do? Well, Travis kind of rounds out the idea here. Travis is the head of operations for a global travel company. And what he says is, instead of asking your employees to memorize the dozens or hundreds of different software processes that they need to do their job on a day-to-day basis, don't ask them to memorize it. Just take all the knowledge they need about how to do those processes and stick it in the software so it's at their fingertips the moment they need it. That way you don't have to train them on them up front. Inevitably, when the software changes or the process changes, you don't need to constantly train and retrain people. You don't have all this friction when people don't memorize all the processes. The knowledge is just at their fingertips where they need it. So these are kind of the main truths that we believe in that inform what we have to say about software training and all these other tools. So again, if you think about like how the expectations we have on employees today when it comes to learning software, we expect them to memorize dozens of processes. If they don't memorize those processes, we expect them to search all around the organization and a bunch of repositories to find the knowledge. A lot of times the knowledge is delivered to them in long videos or dense documentation. We believe in this other thing where employees don't memorize all the processes. They just focus on learning how to do the important part of their job. The knowledge about software is embedded at their fingertips, so they have it when they need it, and it's super easy to apply. So that's the foundation with which the rest of this webinar is built on. Okay, let's get into those specific tools and talk about how the pros and cons and how they compare to one another. So there are tons and tons of different training and enablement tools. What we found after years of research and talking to hundreds of customers is that the vast majority of organizations can do everything they need to do with the following four training and enablement tools. And you've certainly heard of some of them and are using some of them, and some of them you probably haven't heard of. So we're going to talk about in the next couple of minutes learning management systems, knowledge bases, digital adoption platforms, and work instruction tools. And if you're not familiar with all of these, we're going to get you up to speed and talk about how they compare and contrast. Before we do that, though, again, in order to understand these four tools, these four categories of training and enablement tools, we need to look at the different types of knowledge that they are meant to convey to your employees. Again, you could slice and dice the different type of knowledge a lot of ways if you want. What the framework that I've seen that really works, that I think is really accurate, is breaking knowledge down into explanation, which is the why, right? So background, context, rationale, right? Reference information, which is like specific information. So like a list of healthcare insurance options employees can choose from, or the different sales tax rates by state, right? And then the third category is procedural knowledge, which is usually step-by-step instructions, right? How to do something, right? Step by step by step. So keep these three knowledge types in mind as we go through. Now, there's one more qualification about the type of knowledge before we dive into these four tools. There's one way to look at knowledge within an organization is that there's like two parts of our job. There's the part of our job we do when we're staring at our laptop and working in software, which for some of us is 90% of what we do. And we call that software knowledge. There's some parts of our job where the thing we're doing at that moment is not directly connected to typing on our laptop or interfacing with some kind of software. We call that general knowledge. It's important to keep that qualification in mind as we go through these next four categories. So let's start with one that many of you may not be familiar with. So work instruction tools are a fairly new category. And if you're a Tango user, thank you. You may have not heard of this category, but this is the name of the category that a lot of you know Tango for. So what do work instruction tools do? They allow you to create step-by-step software procedures. They compile screenshots of software programs into step-by-step guides. And we're one of the leaders in that category. There's some other there's some logos of some other vendors in that category that help a lot of customers as well. What everyone in this category has in common is you can quickly and easily assemble software guides with screenshots. You just click through the process that makes the guide for you. And these are great for software how-to guides. I mean, we have I'll share some consistent themes that we've heard about work instruction tools with you from working with thousands of customers. In fact, we've been lucky to help almost 500,000 people make how-to guides with the Tango work instruction platform over the last 3 years. So here's what they say about it when it comes to software training. Work instruction tools were built with the creator in mind. So the person who has to create the how-to guide used to have to do a very manual effort where you manually capture screenshots, cobble together the documents, write out all the descriptions, add in all the links. It might have taken you hours to make a single how-to guide. And you can do that in minutes with a work instruction tool. And honestly, I've never worked at a company like Tango where people love the product. We've had so many people tell us that it just completely changed their lives. What we learned from those customers, though, even the ones that love Tango, is that we weren't solving the entire problem. Even though for you as a creator, we saved you hours in creating those how-to guides, we didn't actually change that much about the end user experience. So a lot of the people that use work instruction tools and Tango customers who love Tango, they told us, yeah, it's great, but we have to put those how-to guides in a knowledge base. And our end users still don't want to use our knowledge base. They don't like the knowledge base. So it doesn't matter how many more how-to guides I made and how much easier it was for me. When I stick it in the knowledge base, it still goes there and nobody finds it. Some of our customers said, it doesn't matter what I do, our users don't want to learn the new software no matter what. And then the other thing we heard is that, these how-to guides are great, but I can't really see if anyone's like actually following the process that I put in there. So as great as work instruction tools are, they have these limitations. So let's talk about the second category, which is the knowledge base. Knowledge base is probably the training and enablement tool that most of you are familiar with and that most organizations had. They are built to create a central single source of truth for all of your stuff, all knowledge, all documents, all imaginable information. You throw it in there. And for a long time, the idea of this single source of truth really made sense, right? It's great. We have one central repository for everything instead of it spread all over the place. Unfortunately, what has happened to knowledge bases over the years, and we use one, we use Notion, we love it. I've used other ones that are great, is they just get filled with a ton of junk. The junk isn't always updated. It's hard to find. And then for a lot of employees, even when they do find it, they're not that excited about reading a long document. So there is a lot of value to knowledge bases, but when it comes to software training specifically, there is that drawback. Now, again, maybe this sounds familiar to you, but Giuseppe is a customer that I met recently, and he just summed it up nicely. He said, we have a single source of truth. Everything's in there, but our employees either complain about using the knowledge base or just flat out refuse to use it at all. If you are involved in training people in your company, I'm sure you've heard this, right? Okay, let's talk about the third training and enablement tool. I would say learning management systems are probably the second most commonly used and understood training and enablement tool. They are typically good for that explanation information. So Typically, LMSs will have videos and slides in them. Typically, the information is organized into courses where you go through a slide deck or watch a 10 or 20-minute video. You answer a test at the end to see if you remember the information. And a lot of times it's used to help improve like skills, upskilling, reskilling, conveying culture information. These are useful tools. And again, we have one at Tango, but they're not great for software training because the information lives outside of the flow of work. To explain what I mean by flow of work, meet Troy, who's in Adelaide, Australia. He's an L&D manager. And the way he puts it is nobody wants to watch a 15-minute video when they could just use that time to actually go through the process in the software. So video is great for conveying certain types of knowledge. It's not good for step-by-step processes because that process you're trying to learn probably takes you 30 seconds to do. Nobody wants to watch a 5-minute, 10-minute video to learn how to go through a process that should only take them 30 seconds. So learning management systems, great for some kind of knowledge, not good for software training. And that brings us to the digital adoption platform. Digital adoption platforms have been around for years. They were traditionally only used and accessible to, because of the technical complexity and the price, to large organizations. So if you haven't heard of the digital adoption platform, not surprised. The vast majority of customers for these leaders in the space like WalkMe and Whatfix are very large enterprises. And they were purpose built for conveying all three types of knowledge we talked about. So explanation knowledge, reference knowledge, and procedural knowledge, but for when you're dealing with software specifically, right? And the whole goal of a DAP, you'll hear me say DAP a lot, is to increase process adoption. And so they do that by taking all the different types of knowledge, like a tool tip or a guide, and they embed it right inside the software that your employees are using. These tools for end users are a game changer, and I'll show you a lot of feedback about how amazing of an experience they create for end users. Historically, the problem with DAPs when it comes to software training is actually not at all to do with the end user experience, right? So whereas learning management systems, knowledge bases leave a lot to be desired for the end user, DAPs are amazing for the end user. They've been historically very difficult to set up and to create content for you, for the enablement, digital transformation, training, operations, IT person. And so I want to talk next about, you've heard me talk so much about how the traditional software training sets our employees up for failure, how we shouldn't ask them to memorize processes, how we need to make things easier on the end user. And some of you may be wondering, like, why are we, what's wrong with asking them to watch a video, or what's wrong with getting them to read documentation? I don't understand the problem here. There is a big problem. So meet Randa. Randa emailed me actually when I was getting ready to do another webinar a couple months ago. And I was just asking, like, what's the biggest challenge you have when you're trying to get people to adopt new software processes? And she said, by far, resistance to change is my number one challenge. So no matter how exciting I try to make this new software to these employees, it doesn't matter if it's objectively better than what they're doing now. To a lot of employees, change equals bad. Okay. And this is something that I've found to be true in my career, and I can even really personally relate to this. So the hardest thing about software training is, or a software rollout, it's not rolling out the software. It's not even making the guides as frustrating and time consuming as that can be. It's actually just getting your end users to care and pay attention and like even be willing to be open to change. One of our customers, Brittany, at one of our very large organizations, public consulting group, who uses Tango, she coined this term I love, ambivalent adopter. She has a very empathetic take on these skeptical users that I think we can all learn from. So to her, an ambivalent adopter is somebody who is scared to change, especially when it comes to software and technology and processes. Now, the key thing that she will point out very quickly about ambivalent adopters, and again, I think we can all learn from this, is that they're not bad and they're not lazy. I get that you can't identify with them. To you, you're like, I'll just read the document. I'll just watch the video. You're excited by learning new things, right? That's why you're in your job of digital transformation, training, enablement, IT operations. They're not like you. They're not wired that way, but they're not lazy. All right. They are happier in their comfort zone. They are more likely to suffer silently and not ask for help. And if they do raise their hand and ask for help, they are really going to want their hand held. Okay. So if you go to the far right, while they do care, doesn't mean they don't care about your company and their job. They do want to learn how to sell more or build better products or help your customers, but they just in their mind don't think that this software, these training sessions, these new processes are going to help them do that. So once you put yourself in their shoes, it's easier to understand, how we need to do our software training and what type of software training tools we might need. And so this leads to kind of the first main point, right? Digital adoption platforms were purpose built to help you do that software training to get that process adoption we need, but with the least amount of change for the end user. All right. So whereas I think that when you try to do software training through documentation and a knowledge base or through videos in an LMS, you're asking the end user to do quite a few things different. There's a lot of change. DAPs have a lot less change that they ask of the end user. Now, that's great, right? And so that's why you need to consider a digital adoption platform when you're doing software training, if you really care about that end user adoption. Let's talk about now where Tango fits in. So again, we're going to get really specific and we're going to have a little fun. I don't want you to take my word for it. Okay? So what I did to give you a sense of some of the challenges that customers have with some of the existing leaders in the digital adoption space is I went right to their happy customers and I just told you I'm going to show you some examples of what some of their happy customers have to say. So I tried to be as objective and unbiased as I possibly could. So I went to G2, which is a review platform. I pulled only reviews about these leading digital adoption vendors that where the customer was really happy. So I'm not showing you people that gave these vendors a 1 or a 2 or a 3 stars. This individual gave this leading DAP vendor 4.5 stars. And they even started by saying great things about it. Okay. I did redact the name of this specific DAP vendor to protect the innocent, but you're probably reading ahead, and that's great. So they do say how great the experience is for the end user. And they start by saying all the different things they can do. And then they go on to say, um, raise your hand if you know what jQuery is. I didn't know what that was until I had to become Christine, Eric. I'm impressed. So some of you know what it is, but this particular person felt like because they weren't a programmer, there was a big learning curve to understanding that. And once they got it down, it was great, but they struggled to get up and running with that. Now, this is not a cherry picked review. Go to G2 and go to the WalkMe and Whatfix and Pendo reviews. Those are the three big players in the space. You will see review after review like this where they say, great for the end user, really difficult for me to get it set up and to create the walkthroughs. Here's another example. Again, I protected the name of the vendor, but they gave them 4.5 stars. Excellent tool, bit of a learning curve. So they love what it can do for the end users. And this is a tough quote. 2 years later, I'm the main person building the walkthroughs for our company. I'm still learning how to do things. That is tough. So this is a happy customer that's saying, yeah, we're getting what we need for our end users, but there is a major learning curve here for me to get to set them up for success. And I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about. If you've never used a digital adoption platform and you can't envision like what this jQuery or this complicated experience looks like, I went to a very recent video. It was published a couple months ago for a leader in the digital adoption space, and I just pulled this screenshot from their video. Okay, so I just want you to look at all of the options and flexibility. There's a lot of power here, frankly. There's a lot of great features, but this is a lot. And this doesn't even begin to show you the part about how you have to learn code to do certain things in digital adoption platforms. And so there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, these the more the bigger the learning curve means the more features. So these platforms are very, very powerful. But this for some people might hold you back from getting the most value from the platform. So here's a customer that I met with really recently. She did not want to be named about this feedback she gave us about these vendors, but basically she is in the process of switching from a one of these other DAPs to Tango. And for them, it wasn't about the end user experience. They had some success with that, but ultimately they couldn't get the maximum value out of the other platform because they couldn't get enough people in the organization who had knowledge to be able to input it in because it was really difficult to work with and required a lot of specialization and specialized knowledge. Why does that matter? If you can't get a lot of people in your organization to create content in your digital adoption platform, then that's going to be less knowledge that you're transferring to users, which will lead to less process adoption and just less success. Another nuance of some digital adoption platforms is they require you to install code in every single individual application or website that you use it on. And that makes it hard to roll out across your organization and multiple applications. And so that's why, even though we strongly recommend digital adoption platforms, we know they're amazing for the end user when it comes to software training compared to knowledge bases and learning management systems. But there has been a failed promise for some customers of getting the full value that they thought because it was just too hard to use for the training and enablement and operations and IT and digital transformation people in their organization. So as you can imagine, Tango had an idea about how we could solve that. We looked at the category that we started in 3 years ago, which is work instructions, right? The ability to help creators make step-by-step software guides in seconds, in minutes, right? And you heard from Gabrielle, and we have thousands of customers and reviews where they say, I was shocked how I was able to create 10 software walkthroughs in the time it used to take me to create one, right? So we said, what if we combine that ease of use for creators with that incredible end user experience that is provided by DAPs? And that's what we did. We call our product the software knowledge layer. And basically, we're here to try to solve, to pick up the ball with that amazing promise from some of those other vendors that pioneered the space, and to take the space to the next level where you have a really easy setup. It works with multiple applications out of the box. The experience to create guides is super easy, and you still get that amazing end user experience as well. So I'm gonna start talking a little bit more about Tango. I know a lot of you came because you want to get specifics about Tango features and you want to see a live demo. We're zooming in that direction. So let me kind of do. Everybody loves a good vendor feature comparison grid breakdown, right? So let me show you an example of what I mean. We wanted to combine these two categories: the ease of use for creators with work instruction, the ease of use for end users in digital adoption. Here's a little more detailed breakdown of what that looks like. When we say click to create, What does that mean? Click to create is a foundational feature of work instruction tools where the way you make guides is just by performing the task. So there's no like guide builder like there was that I showed you a minute ago where you have to like assemble everything, drag and drop. There's no like no code experience or anything like that. To create a guide to show somebody how to do a process in your software, you just do the process yourself completely like you normally would. That's click to create. That is not available in other digital adoption platforms. It is available in work instruction. And that's something that we have in the Tango software knowledge layer. You don't need to deploy any code into your SaaS or desktop applications with the software knowledge like you would with the digital adoption platform. One really critical feature of the software knowledge layer that I'm going to show you in a second is knowledge base and LMS compatibility. So remember earlier, I told you that those knowledge bases and LMSs were not great for software training, but they 100% have a place within your organization. One challenge with the other digital adoption platforms that started in the space was that they were completely disconnected from those other learning and enablement tools you had. The Tango software knowledge layer integrates with all those. I'm going to show you exactly what that means. And yet the work instruction tools didn't have this a seamless in-app experience. And so we combine these two together to make up the software knowledge layer. And now, since I've been showing you G2 reviews from other vendors, I want to show you one. It just happened to pop up on our G2 profile yesterday. It's from Caleb. I won't tell you the name of the company that Caleb works at, but it's a 60,000 person global pharmaceutical organization. And it's just a coincidence that he posted this yesterday, but it just happens to highlight some of the themes that I've been talking about. So the text is a little small, so you can go read it for yourself on our G2 profile, but I kind of highlighted some of the key experts. So Caleb starts by talking about how Tango is great for capturing the actual click. So that click to create experience is what he's talking about. He then goes on and talks about how great the end user experience is with a feature that I'm going to demo for you in a minute called Guide Me. Guide Me makes it very easy for end users to literally see what needs to be selected or performed right on their screen, right on the software that they're using. And then he compares Tango to their existing knowledge base Confluence. So yes, they have a knowledge base Confluence. Yes, that's a single source of truth where they stick everything in there. But when it comes to software knowledge, their users prefer using Tango, which is built into their software instead of, quote, rummaging through Confluence. I'm going to show you what that looks like in a second, but I just thought this was an interesting compare and contrast. Okay, so I've mentioned click to create a couple times. I want to give you another customer case study about why the click to create experience that we've integrated into our version of the digital adoption platform is so critical for your success. So I love this quote from Emily. She's in operations for a global healthcare company. And she talks about the emotional aspects of creating, software training, which I hear about a lot, right? So there's this emotional barrier when you know that you have to like embark on this like multi-hour process. So what happened at Concierge with Emily was she's like, it used to take me 20 plus hours to create a single software process training walkthrough. And because of that, she would just avoid it. And the other people on her team, they would just avoid it. It was like this task that loomed over their head, and they would like schedule it out once a quarter, and everyone hated it. And as a result, they didn't have the breadth of training that they needed because people just avoided, documenting the knowledge. Employees were frustrated because they didn't like the way they were being taught how to learn the software. After they implemented Tango, this dramatically changed, not just for Emily, but the most impressive thing for Emily about Tango is that she was now able to recruit 30 other people in the organization who were willing to contribute their knowledge about the best practices for how to use their software processes, because these people who traditionally would not get involved in making guides because they were too busy or they didn't want to, it was so easy for them to do it in Tango that they now were willing to contribute their knowledge. So their training process knowledge covered went through the roof because it wasn't Emily all by herself doing it. That's the value of Click to Create. It's so easy. Even people who normally would not contribute knowledge in your organization can now do it, and that helps everybody. So that's why Click to Create is important. I talked about this other thing about one of the things that we have in Tango that other DApps don't have is the ability to integrate with your existing knowledge base. So let me show you what that looks like and explain why that's really important. So in other digital adoption platforms, the walkthroughs you create and all the knowledge and IP about how to use your software, it goes into a proprietary system that is siloed from all of your from your LMS, from your knowledge base, right? And not only is the knowledge now in the proprietary system, it's only available through one mechanism through the software. And so if you play that out, um, that means that you're creating multiple different experiences for your end users. What do I mean by that? Well, if if you have spent a lot of time training your employees to get answers by going to the knowledge base, you have this great new digital adoption platform and it gives them answers right in the software they're using. But what if they actually do what you've been asking them to do and go on the knowledge base? They're going to see a different thing in the knowledge base than what they see in the DAP. Same thing, they're going to see a different thing in the LMS and what they see in the knowledge base than what they see in the DAP. Tango actually unifies it all together. So because we integrate with your knowledge base in your LMS, your employee gets the exact same content and experience, whether they look for the knowledge in Slack, whether they look for the knowledge in your LMS, your knowledge base, or directly in the software, which is what we want them to do. So here's an example of what that looks like. This is Bree. She is in marketing ops for a global software company. And they use Confluence. And yes, they wanted to implement Tango to make it easier for end users to learn how to use the software processes, but she just couldn't give up on Confluence. She had so much invested in that. So she used the Tango Confluence integration to embed all of the guides she made. This is an example of a process for teaching people how to use WordPress, which is a website content management system. So the guides that she made for learning WordPress not only live directly inside of WordPress, like the way a DAP works, but also inside of Confluence. And it's exactly the same regardless of where you go. And the benefit for her is when you update it once, it updates in all of those places. And so that not only makes the employees happier, but it made her really happy. It's not just your knowledge base. I want to give you an anecdote from a gentleman I met in Adelaide, Australia, Troy. I think I mentioned Troy to you earlier. He said that they're going to keep their LMS. So they need those courses that they have in their LMS, but they are going to add the Tango software knowledge layer digital adoption to complement it. And he basically says that they want to avoid death by learning module. Here's what he's saying. He's saying there's some content that's great to be consumed as a video or a slide deck in our LMS, but when it comes to process training, that's not what our users need. So by combining the LMS and the Tango together, the software training is consistent whether you find it in the LMS or directly in the software you're using, but it's delivered in a way that's much better for the end user. There's one more pattern I want to talk about. So what is for a lot, I don't know if this rings true, but for me at Tango and everywhere else I've worked, one of there's probably more knowledge about how to do things, whether it's in software or not, that gets transferred through email or Slack or Teams than almost anywhere else. So imagine this pattern. Imagine the pattern of a coworker reaching out to you and asking you how to do something. They're not in your knowledge base. They're not in your LMS. They're not in the software itself. They're asking you, the expert, in Slack. One of the other really important things that Tango does is we allow you to deliver the training as a link. And that link works everywhere, including in Slack and Teams and email. So here's an example of me helping a coworker. They don't know how to make a Spark survey. I have a guide about how to do that. I can take that guide, drop the link in, and it opens the Tango experience for the end user. And then they can click a button and it opens the software for them and immediately starts walking them through the process. So instead of asking your end users to learn all these new patterns, yes, there's a better way of training them on how to use software, but there's also all these old patterns you've been training them how to use. They ask you through Slack, they go to your knowledge base. Tango integrates with all of those. So your knowledge is the same and consistent and everywhere they already are. And so there's less change for the end user, which will make you even more successful. All right, it's time for the demo. So you're going to see 4 elements of the Tango software knowledge layer in the demo that we're about to do. I'm going to show you how to create walkthroughs. I'm going to show you how to integrate those into all of your different knowledge bases, learning management systems, into your software. I'm going to show you what that end user guide me feature looks like. And then I'm going to show you analytics so you can actually see if your processes are being adopted. So I want you to imagine a scenario. Imagine a scenario where you want to teach a sales rep in your organization how to enter a lead into your CRM. So let's open our CRM and log in. And I want to show you what click to create looks like. Okay. So here we are in a fake Salesforce instance. And Nicole asked about the Chrome extension. So we have 2 different ways that you can use Click to Create. You can use it with a browser extension that works in Chrome or Edge, or you can use it with a desktop application that's great for your desktop software. I'm going to show you Salesforce, which is web-based. So I'm going to use the Chrome extension. And all I do is click the tab. So it says, "Hi, Rocco. Are you ready to capture Tango?" Yes, I am. So I click this big orange capture button. And now to create, excuse me, to create this guide, all I need to do is click. All I need to do is click. So I don't know if I can talk right now, so I'm just going to click. So I want to click leads. Notice on the right-hand side, this Tango panel that opened is showing me what I just did so I can see the guide and the screenshot that's being created in real time. So the next step is I click this drop-down menu. Notice it's capturing that, showing me exactly what I did. I click lead again. One really cool feature is that we automatically detect sensitive information. So there's a lot of PII that might get captured in this process guide that we're building. And since that process guide will not only be delivered as a live walkthrough in the Salesforce, but as a guide in your knowledge base, then we want to blur all that out in the guide version of it, right? So we can blur out all this different type of sensitive information automatically for you. The Tango AI does that for you. So Tango is watching what I do as I click. It's building the guide. If I change my mind about a step and I don't want it in there, or I just misclicked, I just delete that step on the right-hand side in real time, and I keep moving. So you don't need to watch me build add a lead into Salesforce right now. I think you get the picture. It builds the guide as I watch it. And now I am going to click the big green done button, and I want you to see a bunch of cool things that are going to happen. So I click done. My clicking is done. So now the Tango AI is creating the guide for me now. So it's going to do a bunch of cool things here in a few seconds while we watch. It's going to assemble all the steps, all the screenshots from those steps. It's going to annotate where my mouse clicked so that we know where the user needs to go and where they need to click. Tango AI is going to write all the step descriptions for you. It's going to name the workflow for you. Notice my hands are not on the keyboard right now. So everything you see happening on the screen is a Tango AI. Now you can customize all this, right? So if the AI gets the name wrong, you don't like workflow with Salesforce, you can come in here and edit this. But what we now have is a beautiful guide with perfectly cropped screenshots that show your user exactly what to do. Now, as I've described in great detail, there are many ways that this can be shared. This guide can be shared with this link. This guide can be embedded directly into your knowledge base. So you can use this link and copy it into Slack or Teams to get a beautiful embedded experience. You can use this embed link to copy it into many different knowledge bases and learning management systems. I want to show you how great that looks. So here is the Tango real Notion knowledge base. We use Notion at Tango. All right. So I am in a wiki called Salesforce Processes. And here, this gray box, navigating Salesforce lead creation, is a real Tango that I made previously. Look how beautiful it looks inside of Notion. In fact, it looks like it's native to Notion. And as an end user, I can start clicking through the process. I can go left to right. I can tab forward to skip to the step where I'm stuck. If I don't want to go through the whole thing and I just need help on a specific step, I can scroll it up and down more like a PDF. But the key thing I can do here, again, is people don't really want to read guides. They don't want to memorize this process. They just want the thing to guide them through it directly inside the software. And so this same guide that now can be integrated into Slack, Teams, Knowledge Base, LMS, also gets integrated directly inside the Salesforce application. So I don't, as an end user, actually need to even read anything. I can just get guided through it with the guide me feature. And I'm going to show you that right now. Let me check the Q&A. So so let's see. So Edward asked, regarding click to create, mentioned other DAP tools require you to manually build or drag and drop. How does Tango's element selection technology compare to others? As an app content creator, my ability to manually adjust my flows allows me to overcome possible technical issues, non-specific HTML. So hopefully that answered your question, Edward. We have a completely different experience for building flows. You don't build it with drag and drop. You literally just click, we create the walkthrough, and now I'm going to show you what that looks like inside of some applications. Okay, so let me switch gears. I want you to put your end user hat on. Okay, imagine you're a sales rep in your organization, and your company had a webinar this week, and a bunch of the people from their webinar raised their hand and said that they wanted to talk to sales to get pricing or see a personalized demo. And your job is to follow up with them right now. And there was a meeting a couple days ago where someone explained to you the process of getting the webinar leads from the marketing system into your sales CRM. You weren't paying attention. You have no idea how to do that process. Let me show you how you would do that with the Guide Me feature in the Tango software knowledge layer. So again, I'm an end user right now. The marketing system that has all the webinar leads is HubSpot. All I have to do as an end user is go up. I'm in HubSpot. I don't have to leave HubSpot. I just open the Tango Chrome extension. Now, ignore 1 second. I have to close this for this to work. Okay, so let's do that again. Okay, so I'm in HubSpot and ignore this big orange button. Your end users, your employees wouldn't have the ability to create content, so they wouldn't actually see this. What they will see, though, is a bunch of guides that you've created for them that are natively already embedded in the software that they're using. And we will recommend guides based on what they're actually doing at this moment. And if they want, they can search. That's something that was mentioned in the Tango review. So if I'm looking for a process about a webinar, I can type in webinar. And again, great. Here is the process that I think I'm looking for. Add webinar lead into Salesforce. So it's going to open this Tango panel. Now, this panel is great training wheels to kind of keep me in the loop on where I am and what I'm doing. But if I want the easiest possible experience as an end user to get guided through this process, I'm just going to click this guide me button. And what's going to happen is Tango is now going to take over my HubSpot and show me exactly what to do right on the screen. Okay. So let's look for the orange box. All we have to do is follow the orange box. So the orange box is telling me to click contacts. So I click contacts. Notice the menu is updating on the right-hand side. It's telling me to click lists. So I click lists. It's telling me now, it's going to show me probably a list of webinars, I'm guessing. Let's see what we get. Oh, yeah, let's see. We get a list. Oh, sorry. I was actually in the real Tango HubSpot instance. That's a no-no. So actually, here's a cool example. I didn't even mean to do this, but I was in the real HubSpot instance with customer data. I don't want to show you that. Let me show you a really cool feature. If you at any point get lost and you just want to start over again, watch what I can do. I can go back to the step one. The AI just suggests, right? So let's do that again real quick. Click contacts, click lists. I'm in the demo system now, so I won't accidentally show you any customer data. And it's going to open the lists. I'm going to hopefully find the webinar that I am looking for, which is the tips and tricks webinar. There it is. So I click the tips and tricks webinar, and it's going to presumably open all the people that attended that webinar that wanted me to follow up with them. Here we are as a list. Let's start with Chloe. Now here's another cool thing that's about to happen. Tango works extremely well with multi-app workflows. So this business process is going to span from HubSpot into one other system. And I want to show you how seamless that is right now for me as an end user. I'm going to click, the orange box is telling me to click copy email to clipboard icon. So I'm going to click that. Notice it knows that the next step is in Salesforce. It just opens Salesforce for me. The single sign-on in Salesforce automatically logged me in. And I just keep following the orange box, although this time the orange box is in Salesforce. So I click leads. You get the picture. It's totally seamless for me as an end user. I didn't have to memorize how to do this process or leave HubSpot to go look for the answer in the knowledge base. It was just right. It was just right here for me. All right. So we have a couple minutes left, and it's basically time for Q&A. But I want to see where we're at on the chat. Okay, so create guides. So one question was about, does this work on mobile applications? Not yet. So that is on our long-term roadmap, but we don't have support for mobile applications yet. Michael asked, can you change the color of the highlight box? And Gabrielle answered, that's amazing, Gabrielle. Thank you. Yes, on paid accounts, you can change the color. You can add your branding. Someone asked a question about cross applications. Hopefully I answered that. Oh, your customers are amazing. Javier jumped in and answered anonymous attendee's question. The question was, does it work on cross application? And Javier said, yes, it works across multiple applications. And hopefully I just showed you that. D asked, can a link to a Tango workflow be put in a PowerPoint? Yeah, that link works beautifully in a Google Doc, a Word doc, PowerPoint. You can save it to your browser. So the last thing that we ran out of time to look at that I do want to quickly show you though, and actually if you book time with sales, you should have them show this to you in your one-to-one demo. I didn't talk about analytics. This is a very brief glimpse into the type of process adoption analytics that you get with Tango. So you can actually see all the work you're doing, if it's working or not, or if there's any problems you need to fix. So on the left-hand side of this slide is an example of what a 13-step process you made, right? You can see that most people are not successfully completing the process. And actually, you can see most people are falling off in step 3 and 4. So now you can go click a button in there and go straight to step 3 and 4 and see what's going on and see if maybe the software changed, your instruction is incomplete, you did something wrong, and you can fix that process. You can also see that on an individual or team basis. So in this example, Lauren is one of those people who got stuck on step 3. You can go straight to Lauren and say, hey, Lauren, what happened on step 3? And I didn't show this in the demo, but Lauren also has the ability when she's going through the process to send you a comment and say, hey, I got stuck on step 3. And so you can see what was going on in her screen. So you have all the context to troubleshoot what happened to her on step 3 a lot faster. So if you do, there's way more to the analytics than just this slide. So if you book a demo of sales, have them show you the analytics.